Okay, good evening, everyone. I would like to call the Town of Rochester Town Board April Workshop meeting to order. If you could all stand and I'll lead us in a pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Hey, can you do the roll call?
Councilwoman Alba is absent. Councilman Coleman.
Here.
Councilman Smeeseth is absent. Councilman Nguyen.
Here.
Supervisor Nowin.
I am here. The first item on our agenda is the acceptance of the agenda. I'd like to make a motion that the town board accepts the agenda as prepared by the town supervisor with the following amendment that we will strike the adoption of a body camera policy. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Right now, there's only 3 of us present. So just a reminder, all votes have to be unanimous unless the 4th board member joins us. So I am very happy to hand the floor over to our Superintendent Dr. Spadaro and Assistant Superintendent Begane for a presentation of the 2026 school year budget. Thank you so much for doing this. I think it's really wonderful that you are coming to the towns to present the budget because it does have an impact on all of us in so many ways. So with that, I would like to offer you the floor. And I will page through your presentation, which is up on the screen. We do have a microphone here and a microphone in the ceiling there. So if you could speak loudly so that the people watching us.
I have
copies as well. Oh, perfect. Thank you.
So thank you, Town Supervisor Nowin. Thank you, Town Board. Thank you to the members of the Town of Rochester community for being here today. If you don't know me, my name is Paul Spadaro. It's a privilege and honor to serve as a superintendent of schools around that Valley Central School District.
And I am Tabitha Begane. I'm the Assistant Superintendent for Business Services at the school. And I work very closely with Dr. Spadaro to develop budget.
Our theme, what we want our vision to be is we want to be a world premier school district moving forward, where our students are future ready and productive citizens, and that we create a community that fosters, a collaboration and innovation. And our hashtag is Premier Rondout Valley, because we want to be a premier school district, not only this year, but in years to come. And this is what the budget funds. This is all the things we offer our students. We have an innovative math curriculum, our Amplify ELA curriculum, which is aligned to the state standards. We have a FastFritz data screener that gives us real-time data on student performance, see where kids are struggling, what skills that they need, and it gives us some interventions on how to fill those gaps. We got special ed programs, our BOCES CTE offerings. We never turn a student away if they want to go to BOCES to be an electrician, a plumber, or study welding. They get to experience those programs. That's what the budget offers and funds. We have AP classes, dual enrollment classes, small gas engines to repair. We have FFA, Future Farmers of America, so 2nd year of that innovative program. We have fishing and wildlife that we offer as elective classes for our students. The Writing Revolution program that the budget funds as well. Not only we focus on academics, but we focus on the whole child as well too, with student well-being. We have a digital hall pass system that we can monitor students in the hallways through their Chromebooks. We monitor their online safety as well with our GoGuardian software. We have a social emotional learning curriculum that we're going to be rolling out next year to work on student soft skills moving forward. Again, about our award-winning music programs. That's what the budget funds as well. We have psychologist-related services, social workers, athletics, over 24 athletic events, sports that kids can participate in, unified sports, PE, after-school clubs, school counselors. So that is what our budget funds, all of these innovative and creative programs, so our students are on the college and career-ready pathway. And our goals of multi-year financial planning is we want to minimize impact on student programs. And so if the budget is passed, the budget vote is May 19th, so please come out and vote. But we want to minimize impact on student programs. We want to minimize staff reductions. We always look at people who are resigning, who are retiring. We try to transfer teachers in the right places so we can minimize reductions and continue reducing expenses to minimize the gap. And then, of course, the third biggest part is why we're here. We want to be fiscally responsible to our taxpayers. We're asking this year to go to the tax cap, which is at 3.82%. That is a decrease from last year, a 0.34% decrease from 2025. And our budget is only increasing 2% this year. So all the innovative and creative programs that we offer, our budget is only going up 2% in 2026. And that's a 0.32% decrease from 2025. So that should be telling you, all of you, that we're really trying to be really fiscally responsible and making sure we have a right type budget that we put out to the community to approve.
So all that to say, what is the actual figures? So this is a comparison year over year of our expenditures on the top graph. On the bottom graph is our revenues, because our revenues minus our expenditures gives us what's left, which should be zero. We always net to zero. We're not a profit-making district. So last year, our budget was $80,470,116. We are increasing it by that 2% or 1.6 million. So that'll be a new budget of $82,093,525. You'll notice on the bottom there was a decrease in our revenues. This is a two-part reason. One of the reasons is that we didn't see much of an increase to our state aid numbers. So our state aid numbers came in at just 1% increase, which equals to be about $300,000 extra in state aid. State aid is things such as foundation aid, you'll hear that out in the news. Aid for expense-based programs such as BOCES. So those BOCES CTE programs that Dr. Spadaro was talking about, the state actually reimburses us a portion of the cost of that. So it's not a full cost of the district. So it's actually a very smart way to go. And then some other things as well. So all in all, you'll see our revenues are going down by almost $3 million. Said a different way, like I was talking about with the state aid numbers, we have on the top of this graph is our expenditures from the prior page. What we're preliminarily proposing or asking the taxpayers to approve in May is that $82 million. To support that expenditure budget, we're looking at the property tax levy increase of about 3.82%, which works out to be $1.8 million about increase year over year in our levy amount. So that brings the levy to $48,504,813. As I said before, our state aid number remained pretty flat. $300,000 is not a lot when you're looking at a $1.6 million increase in your expenditures. So we're outpacing our aid generation. Miscellaneous items are going to be things such as our interest earnings. We charge tuition for some of our special education programs. So we have such a viable and vibrant special education program that other school districts actually send their students to our school. We're able to charge them a rate to educate their students. So we generate revenue for those to help offset some of the expenditures to educate them. All in all, we have a budget shortfall of about $4.4 million. In order to net to zero, we are proposing to use fund balance. What fund balance is our savings. So we have expenditures that we propose every year, but they're always estimates. As we get through the year, we start recognizing areas where we aren't going to spend as much as we thought. That money that we have savings wise, we can apply to the next year's budget to decrease the amount of impact on our taxpayers. So we are using 3.1, almost $3.2 million in fund balance for savings. And then we also in years past took those savings and filled them into reserves. There are reserves that we're allowed to open to cover specific expenditures for specific reasons. We'll talk a little bit about that in a few minutes, but we're going to use about $1.2 million out of our reserves
again, to have the taxpayers in mind, with a $4.4 million gap, we could easily say to the board, hey, we need to exceed the cap. We want to get more money out of our community, but we know that we have you in mind. So how can we be creative and strategic? And instead of asking more money from the community, how can we be to fill that gap? Can we use our reserves? Can we use our fund balance? Can we look at grants? Can we look at right sizing the district and looking at our enrollment and, like I said, being strategic and with our human capital?
So said a different way, our expenditures are broken up by New York State Education Department into 3 different categories: program, capital, administrative. Program is, as you would expect, what it takes to educate a student. And you'll notice in this pie, it is the largest part of our expenditures. It is the healthy and correct way for a budget to look. All of our funds should be going to support students, their growth, and our future. So 75% of our expenditure budget does that. It supports student education. Then there's the other parts, right? How do we keep everything running? Capital is going to be a part of that. That is not just our debt. That is to maintain our facilities. That's all the employees that come and clean the school floors and mow the lawns and remove snow. And then administrative is going to be not just Dr. Spadaro and myself and other administrators. It's also our legal counsel, our auditors, things like that to support and make sure that we have people watching what we're doing.
So you look at our historical levels of declining enrollment. This is when we showed you kind of we have a revenue concern with Rhonda when you have expenses going up and you have revenue going here. Well, you create a gap, right? And that's where that $4.6 million comes into play. And part of that gap is our declining enrollment. And from the last 10 years, from 2018-19 to 2026-27, we've lost about 342 students. That's a school. That's bigger than Kerhansen. That's bigger than Marbletown, and that's bigger than our junior high school. So we really lost a school in the last 10 years. So we're trying to right size the district to make sure our student enrollment declining also matches our staff enrollment. And to be, fiscally responsible, those things should even out a little bit. And myself and Ms. Begin, we're trying to do a really good job of right sizing the district. This is our second year together, our second budget together. And as you can see over time, we had 250 staff members with an enrollment of 1679 students and 19 administrators. We've decreased that last year from 250 to 235 because we had a declining student enrollment. So therefore, we should probably match that with a declining staff enrollment. So we did that last year, along with going from 19 administrators to 17 administrators. And now what we're proposing this year is going from 235 to 215 staff members, because again, we're going from 1624 students to 1586, and we're going from 17 administrators down to 15 administrators. So that's how it should look. And as the years go by, that gap should be getting smaller and smaller. Again, it's strategies for easing burden to all of you, the taxpayers. We did a teacher retirement incentive, which saved us almost $900,000. We did a paraprofessional retirement incentive, saved us about $242,000. We shifted to a higher copay plan structure with our health insurance, $650,000 savings there. We're going after an extended day and school violence grant. We could possibly be awarded $450,000 over 5 years for that. We're exploring an energy performance contract project for energy savings. Again, that could be a possible $2.1 million in savings. And then we have an EPA grant with our EV bus mandate. It's a $10 million grant we got awarded from the EPA to put EV buses in our area, because that is a mandate slated to take effect in 2035. So again, we're trying to be very strategic. We're trying to be creative, because again, if we didn't get these grants, we'd be asking you to be funding these projects. But myself, Ms. Begin, the district, the Board of Education, we're trying to be really creative and strategic to get this funding so we don't put the burden on the taxpayers.
So now we're going to talk about tax cap versus tax levy. So the tax cap is the calculation of what we're allowed to levy. That's all to say, every year, this is a historical graphic. The lighter blue or the column on the left is what was the cap. And the column on the right, which is the dark blue, is what the levy was. So what we were allowed to generate in revenue and what we actually utilized to generate revenue. So back in 22-23, the levy was, or the cap was 5.26% increase, which would have generated $2.1 million in revenue for the district, additional revenue from the year prior. The levy ended up being exactly that. So we levied the exact amount of the tax cap. Going forward to 23-24, the district during that time, 23-24 and 24-25, if you'll remember, there was something going on in this country. Maybe you remember the pandemic. During that time, everything was tight for everybody. So they did not go to the cap. They went below the cap to 3%. They kept it at 3%, said, we understand what our community needs at this time, and we want to recognize that. They were getting a lot of grants from the federal government to cover costs at the school district for technology, PPE, all those things. So they didn't need as much revenue that in those years. Dr. Spadaro and I's first year was 25-26, and we did recommend to go to the levy cap or levy to the cap. And again, this year we're asking the same of the taxpayers. Because, as you saw, we have a $4 million budget gap, and there's not a lot of ways for the district to generate revenue except through taxpayer dollars and state aid. And then we try to look at grants. We are also looking at a company called 3+1 to help us invest some of our savings to grow better interest. So those things we're doing now behind the scenes to try to help lessen the burden of taxpayers. What does the tax levy mean? And this is something that's really difficult to explain. So the levy, the total amount of the levy was $48,504,813. We take that lump sum of money, and that's the maximum amount the district can generate. We cannot get a dollar more than that. So that is spread out among the townships that are serviced by the district. So we are a taxing jurisdiction for the town of Warsing, the town of Marbletown, the town of Rosendale, and the town of Rochester. The proportionate share by each town is listed up here. That is how much the town itself generates in revenue. So of the $48 million, town of Rochester generates 30% of that figure. That is also then distributed to all the taxpayers evenly based on your home's value. All the things, right? So this is how we distribute, but just I want to say assessed values and all those things don't impact our levy. This is it. We can only generate this much money in revenue, and it's split as evenly as possible across all the townships.
Can we ask the question? Is that
At the end,
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
So we're aware that everybody has their own situations that may be out there. So the district has also been working very hard over the years, prior to Dr. Spadaro and I getting here, to adopt tax exemptions for individuals within our townships. So 2 new tax exemptions that have occurred is our senior citizen tax exemption. You're going to go to your town assessor, you're going to ask them for the form RP 467, you're going to fill out the application, submit all the information and send it, then they send it to Ulster County. Then that will be a deduction on your tax bill when you receive it. Same for volunteer firefighters and ambulance workers. We adopted that tax exemption as well. So if you're a volunteer firefighter in the town of Rochester, fill out form RP 466-H, send it to your assessor's office, they'll submit it to Ulster County, and it'll appear on your tax bill. These are all ways to reduce the amount of taxes that an individual has to pay based on those different categories.
And again, budget vote is coming up. Budget vote for eligible voters. Again, it's Tuesday, May 19th from 7 a.m. until 9 p.m. At the district office, 122 Kaiserreich Road in Akron. You can, if you can't make it in person, you can do an early mail-in ballot or absentee ballot. Applications are available on our district website. Just go to our district website and you'll see how to fill out a mail-in or absentee ballot. Or if you don't have access to the internet or technology, you can come in to the district office and get an early mail-in or absentee ballot. and complete it there. And again, if you need any assistance, please call us. Our phone number's right there, and we're gonna be able to walk you through the process. But the big message is, this is your opportunity for your voice to be heard, so please come vote.
So thank you so much. We have time for question and answers, and I'd like to allow the public to ask questions and receive answers first, and then we'll take questions from any board members. So would anyone like to?
Yeah, when you showed the tax levy pie,
Yes.
and you said that each town has a certain percentage. How was that determined that Rochester only has 33 and how was that, how was that determined?
So that's determined by the number of parcels or properties that exist within our taxing area. So there's lines, right, for the town of Marbletown and the town of Rochester, right? All those determines where your zip code is and things like that. The same for school districts, we follow the same tax map and we have a taxing jurisdiction map. So we can only tax the number of parcels that are within our taxing jurisdiction. So the town of Rochester has less parcels taxable by the district than the town of Marbletown, say.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
A follow-up on that one. Is it number of parcels or is it assessed value?
Number of parcels, number of homes.
I have in class of 1990, by the way. Long and short of it is, what's the actual percentage increase for the residents of the town of Rochester based on assessed value? What's that mill rate portion gonna be? What's that percentage?
So that's a difficult number to give you right now because the town of Rochester just went through a full reassessment. In order for me to give you a true figure, I have to have what the entire assessed values of the entire town will be once you've gone through the grievance process and all those things. That usually doesn't happen till June. So once the town has completed, the assessor has completed evaluating those people who have felt that the assessment wasn't fair or not what they wanted, they will generate all of that information, send it to the Ulster County, and then Ulster County will send us what we are expected to be able to levy by parcels, so that it'll give us a total for the town of Rochester. So for example, right now, in 25-26, the value of the homes in the town of Rochester was 1,066,000,000 and change, okay? Of all the pieces of property, that's how much they were worth. That's how we determine how to separate this pie, right? The number of parcels. It could, whether or not your total values of all of the properties within your township go to $1.1 billion, $1.2 billion, will determine what the tax rate is. Because the other part that comes into this is equalization rate. So equalization rate helps everybody pay their equal share, depending on how long ago they've been assessed.
Right.
I won't have that figure until
Right.
we have those final numbers.
Now, were there any calculations done if the further positions were eliminated? Or calculated to say that you reserved keeping the positions that you eliminated? Were any of those numbers worked, and was it determined at that point it would exceed that tax cap?
You're saying for the budgeted expenditures?
Yes, for the budget itself. So if you were to retain the same level of administration, let's say hypothetically, would that have eclipsed the tax cap, which is why they were eliminated?
That could have been an option for the Board of Education to pursue. Or again, how we're funding it is using our reserves and our fund balance. And it's not a really good budgetary practice to continue using your fund balance and reserves because
You can only go to the well so many times.
there you go, the well's eventually gonna run dry. If we continue using $4 or $5 million each year to balance our budget. So yes, because we have more expenses, so if we took on those more expenses, we could have said, hey, listen, we may have to go up, exceed the cap, but we want to keep all these necessary staff.
And then the other direction would be if you eliminated one or two more positions somewhere else, could it have lowered that tax revenue need by the town of Rochester?
That would be an option if we
Explore
didn't
that.
have, that would be an option if we didn't have to go to the cap.
Okay,
Because and then we have only two ways to generate revenue to, fund this district is the community, is the tax levy. And we're capped at so much we can get from the community and our state aid. So there's options we could, like Ms. Begane showed before, we didn't, some years the district didn't go to the cap. Is because we had an extra revenue coming in from the federal government, but since we don't have that extra revenue coming in, that's why we're recommending to go with the cap, but this year's cap is only a 3.82%. Increase, so that's why we felt like it was best, it was a good decision it wasn't at an astronomical level, but was at a level that we needed that revenue to, to make sure.
I appreciate your time coming out to explain all this stuff.
It's also important to note that the 3.82 is not, like, that's not your tax increase on an individual, that's just the levy increase, I just wanna make sure I said that, I didn't say that really.
So I have a couple things. I attended the meeting last month that went on for about 5 hours, and I wanted to speak, but I didn't know there was a list, and I was there for 4.5 hours, and then I had to go home. I am the tax collector in the town of Rochester, so nobody hears from the taxpayer more than myself when it comes to paying taxes, so a couple concerns. State aid, you didn't mention it today, but I thought at the last meeting you said they used the census from 2008 data, is that correct?
That's part of the foundation aid formula, yes.
Okay, is there any way that there could be pushback from your level that they get that more accurate than going with the 2008 census data? That is something I think is really important on your end, if that is something that.
It actually helps us because our enrollment was a lot more back in 2008.
So this benefits you.
It does benefit us
some ways,
because,
yes.
because our enrollment in 2008, as you saw, was over, 400 or 500 students more. So we're getting more funding from the state. If they used our current data right now with our declining enrollment, we wouldn't get as much aid from the state.
Okay. My next thing is, and you actually said it, our enrollment is down to the point that that's actually a school. Have you really considered maybe closing one of the elementary schools? Because that is where you're gonna see significant impact for the taxpayer.
That's,
Not trying to find little 4 million here and there. You
Sure.
talk 15% of the budget is capital. That's a huge portion of the budget. And I would like to see more of that agenda being driven.
great. I'll segue into that. So we are going through reconfiguration right now at our intermediate and junior high school, right? It's two schools with two principals, two beds codes. So we had to apply to the state and we're still waiting to hear back, but for the 26-27 school year, that will be called Rondout Valley Middle School. So we're going to one school, one principal, one beds code. Okay, so we've already started that process of consolidation. And then we've actually brought in a consultant who's looking at, looking at all of our birth rates, our enrollment trends, is it fiscally responsible the next 10 years to possibly, move everyone to one campus, kind of like what Onteora
Yes.
has done. So those studies and analyses are taking place.
Okay, one final thing, I don't think the taxpayers have 10 years. So that's what I just this is like really important, that this is stuff that needs to be done now.
And just know that we are looking into those options and once we get the data and the studies, and we get those assessments.
Yep.
It will definitely make a financial decision. Welcome.
So the tax assessment is affecting you guys also. So why don't you join us, help get your school reassessed for value? So that drops 1.2 billion, you said, right?
What?
You said the increase went 1.2 million. Increase for your taxes, the school tax.
The school doesn't pay taxes, we generate the taxes.
But you said the school got reassessed for value. And you said the school got reassessed for value for zoning, right? You said the school got reassessed.
We reassess as far as the enrollment goes and our budget goes, but the school district doesn't pay tax. It's considered a government entity. The school district doesn't pay anymore. Our problem is different expenditures go up. We pay for health
Okay,
insurance.
What's the revenue coming from the school you guys are renting? Where'd that money go?
We're renting a
The
school.
one that's in Rosendale. You got to sell that?
We sold it.
Yeah, that's
That's
went
not
to
our
the town.
property.
Yeah, that went to the town.
Alright. Where'd that money go to? That you sold it, where'd the profits go to that school?
Back when they closed it, it would
Yeah.
have gone into the budget at the time, but it has to go towards capital expenditures. So when you sell a building, in theory, you sell, I've been a part of selling buildings in other districts.
So how much does that sell for?
I would have to look into that. I don't know that now. It was years ago. I mean.
No, I
those-
just-
I think it was only $1.
It may have been a
I think it was gifted to the town.
So
Yeah.
then. How come that town can't help you? You give it to that town. Let that town help the increase of this town.
And there's options, like, for example, if we were to close a school, there's options to sell it, that could be like another
The
government
school
entity.
gave it to them for $1, so that town should help out more than coming after us. You
That's
gave them a
Marbletown.
very big building, very
It's
expensive building.
Rosendale.
Rosendale and
Rosendale. It was
Marbletown.
Rosendale Elementary, wasn't it?
It
Yeah.
was Rosendale Elementary. Well, here's the
And
issue.
the court has it now, all that's there, so they
Yeah,
should help take a big portion of paying this increase you guys want from us.
yeah,
You gave them a
unfortunately.
building. You give us-
Unfortunately, the way the taxing goes, though, we don't get a say how much we tax everybody. The district it's set by the Department of Tax and Finance, so how much we tax everybody is
Well, school
it's
takes
through a
donations,
contribution.
right? They can somehow do a donation somehow.
certainly in that, certainly,
Well, yeah,
We'd love to.
I think you should, ask a question to them for that.
it's definitely.
They have a board, they can help out somehow. They have a lot more financial money out in that town. Rich people with movie stars, they can donate.
Something worth exploring,
Yeah.
for certain.
Are there, we've got somebody who hasn't asked questions yet.
So you talked about how you cut the budget on like basic and cut teachers or say staff. And then you said also that the enrollment's down too. So then why would we get an increase towards, say, towards funding when you're cutting back on things already and there's less enrollment? So why would there be that increase?
That's a great question. Every year, we have contractual obligations, like usually every year, your contractual obligations go up like, 4, 5, 6%, This year with health insurance, we budgeted for 8%. Our health insurance across the district went up 16%. So that was a big heavy hit to us. And that's why our expenditures are going up year after year after year. Now, our overall budget only went up 2%. The previous year, it only went up 6%. So we're really trying to do trying to be really fiscally responsible and really keep that year to year budget, around those numbers as much as we can, even though we're seeing 8, 16, 4% increases in our contractual obligations.
Going back to, you mentioned about taking a look at the middle school, potentially enrolling all of those students, like taking it to the high school or from high school to the middle school. So that could potentially open up that vacant land or that vacant building or a series of buildings. Is there potential at that point then to deed that back to the township? Similar to Rosendale, or would that remain mothballed like other state agencies for future use?
I mean, we haven't gotten that far ahead of where we are. We're still,
Food for thought.
yeah, absolutely. We're still in research mode. I mean, the reason the consultant was brought in was to potentially move the 4th grade back to the elementary schools, because that's something the community was asking for is 4th grade a developmentally appropriate place to be with, 6th, 7th, 8th graders, with transportation and with them being at, an intermediate, because it's not really a good clean feeder pattern, what we have right now with K-3, and then all of the kids from rising 4th graders go to the school that services 4 through 8. So we're still looking at that. And the plan was to potentially move the 4th grade back to the elementary schools, but other options could come about from this research that we're doing, the studying that we're doing.
Right, because I know something similar to Rosendale happened here in Acworth, New York, when the high school or the elementary school was back here, it was eventually deeded back. So I was just curious about that for future thought.
Any other questions from the public, Barbara?
I just have a comment that when I read in the paper your enrollment in your elementary classes, it was like, whoa, I was a former elementary school teacher. And I didn't know anything less than 25, and when we got to 20, but either it was through contract with the union or the district. They had to close down the class and then divide those kids between other. And when you were mentioning about bringing 4th grade, I would definitely highly recommend developmental age back there. And if you made those classes bigger by cutting things, you've got classrooms now for those 4th graders.
Yeah, and that's when you saw the teacher retirement incentive, we said about a $900,000 savings. Part of that is we're not rehiring some teachers at the elementary level because our class sizes are very healthy right now. And even with not filling those positions due to attrition, we're still gonna have some good class sizes at the elementary levels.
I would have loved to have that number.
Yeah.
You have
Have
any-
you looked into changing the insurance? you said it went up, what, 16%?
Yeah, so in collaboration with the unions, we did shift to a higher health insurance copay structure that was on the slide earlier. So this is $650,000 savings. So instead of it going up to 16%, we got it down to 9.8%. So again,
What insurance company you guys, they have?
we have MVP and
Orange, Ulster, BOCES.
they have options between the two.
We are exploring other health insurance plans through an insurance broker, though. That is something that is on our radar.
So again, anything that's an obstacle that's thrown our way or a problem, we think we try to be problem solvers. The easy way out was let's just continue out taxing the community. We don't want to do that. We know how everyone feels about taxes, property taxes, school taxes. We're trying to keep those levels as minimal as possible. But at the same time, there's only two revenue sources for a school district in New York, and that is from the state and that is from, the levy.
I just had one more question, not a question, I saw in the paper that the reason that the state aid was so low was because they stated that we don't need it, we're wealthy here,
Yeah.
we are land rich, we
So-
are land.
This is one of the problems we have with our assessed property values, and the reason we get minimum state aid is on paper, we are considered a very rich county because of our assessed property values.
Yeah, so we actually saw a decline in our aid ratio, so the things that we spend money on and we get money back, we get a ratio of money back. So for example, transportation, we get about 45% back on the dollar. Capital expenditures, improvements, we get about 65 cents back on the dollar. And then for BOCES, we get probably about 50%. So for every dollar we spend, we get about 50 cents back, right? In 25-26, we saw a decline in our BOCES aid specifically because on paper, the assessed values and the entirety of our taxing jurisdiction, not just in Rochester, not just in Marbletown, in all of the townships that we tax, went up the largest in New York State. So it went up 35% in 21-22. And that is now affecting the district's ability to generate aid because the district looks to be wealthy based on assessed property values in the entirety, not just in one town, in all. So we're seeing the same negative impact of assessed values in that way.
That based on the equalized value for the parcels?
It's just straight, they take it from census data that's submitted, so they take it from just the assessed values in its entirety in all of the towns that we tax.
But I would assume at 100% equalization.
Yes.
To get the full benefit.
Correct.
So it's driven by market conditions, not
Correct.
necessarily the assessment.
Correct, yes.
Troy Dunn. I got one more, so why don't we go back on the old assessments, keep our assessments where they were and drop the value, and then you gotta get more state aid. Why don't we go back to that question?
I wish we had the power to do that. That's what we do, though.
We don't have anything to
that's-
do with the assessed values, we don't.
Yeah.
we don't
Well, that's where
get
it's coming from, if our values were back where they were, should be. You guys get more state aid, you wouldn't come for us to ask more money.
But that was my question. If it's
Yeah,
based
yeah.
off 100% equalization, the state already knows what properties are selling for compared to what they're assessed at. And they calculate that number. And if they're applying that back in, they're gonna know what the value of the town is based on what people are buying. So it's the
The
market.
town provides, so we could get the numbers corrected where they're supposed to be. They wouldn't have to ask you to increase from us, because the state would give them the grants and funding.
I see.
That's what the numbers.
Everybody through?
Yeah, that's right.
Troy Dunn, I just want to say, this is fantastic. Correct me if I'm wrong, I think this is unprecedented. I never remember in my time, the school district coming down to a town board meeting. Has this happened before?
Yes.
Oh, damn,
There.
okay, sorry.
There you
Be
go,
quiet.
me too.
Okay, let's go back. I am very appreciative
Long
of you
time.
coming out, because anybody who knows me, Kate can attest to for sure. I love communication. Communication is great. So you folks coming out to relay, I think that makes me feel better, makes my family feel better, and I think about everyone here. I wish there were more people here. And perhaps if we communicated it better, we would get more people. So thank you. That's number one. Fund balance, the fund, correct me if I'm wrong. I may be, I'm wrong a lot, but I like being corrected because I like to learn. The fund balance always intrigued me because we talk about fund balance and you say, yeah, dip into the fund balance. I don't even understand why there is a fund balance, because in a perfect world, if you budgeted correctly, there wouldn't be a fund balance. Correct me if I'm wrong, the fund balance comes from over budgeting. So we bring in more, and I'm not saying intentionally, I'm not accusing any of that, don't get me wrong. I'm just saying, we ended up with more money because we over budgeted. Over budgeted, my definition is we spent less than what we asked for, so we therefore have money left over. So we say, let's squirrel it aside, that's our little savings pot, that's our slush fund. The fund balance is the technical term. Correct me if I'm wrong, it's our money, it's taxpayer money. So I find it humorous almost that we say, hey, we're the good guys, we're gonna pay the budget down, we're gonna take $2 million and pay it down. Well, that's $2 million of our money in the first place. So the fund balance has always been an interesting thing to me. Does anybody here recall back, it was when I'm retired military, so when I first came home in 2010, the first place I went was the Rock Valley Central School District, which I'm a graduate of, because that's the largest impact to the members of the community. It's not the municipality, we all know that, it's the school district. So I put my emphasis there. That's the relationship I had with Rosario, that's where that came from, going down there and participating. Unfortunately, at that time, my information is dated, and I will give you that. I haven't gone back because I can only ask the question so many times and never receive an answer. I only got the answer from 3 people down there. It was either Rosario Agostero, it was David O'Halloran, or it was James Blair. Probably the other 2 people, you have no idea who they were. They were on the school board at the time. Dave O'Halloran was the budget guy. But my point is that the budgeting process is really important of budgeting appropriately. And back in that day, I do know for a fact, does anybody else recall this? The school district was in violation of state law because the fund balance was so large, it was larger than what the state allowed. So it had to be thrown back at the budget, which was a good thing. So sorry, it wasn't so much of a question as a diatribe on the fund balance, but am I wrong?
Well, I'd like to answer a little bit of that. I just wanted to give you a chance to say what you had to say.
I'm done with the fund balance, so I'm all ears.
All right, so in theory, you're correct, that fund balance does mean that you over budgeted. However, when we budget, we're budgeting based on an estimate. There's a lot of unknowns. For example, a family with students with special needs can move into the district at any point, and we have to educate them just the same. So special education costs can vary from $10 to hundreds of thousands of dollars to educate a student in the least restrictive environment for them, right? There's one variable. Utility costs, just like in your home, we cannot truly predict utility costs because we don't get a set rate. We get the same rate that everybody gets out in their homes. And as you know, there's some issues going on with our petroleum, right? So we're probably going to see an increase. I didn't change the amount of money that I budgeted for the oil. Those are just 2 examples. Health insurance. We could have a person that was getting a buyout, which means they were refusing our health insurance, decide to take our health insurance. That's a swing from $1,500 to $30,000. So we don't have a full view to get those things, right? But what Dr. Spadaro and I really work hard to do is to not increase the budget as much as we should. So for example, a contract, a teacher's contract, an administrator's contract, anybody's contract has specific requirements for salary increases every year. On average, all of our contracts, probably about 4 to 5%. We also see health insurance increases. Those we don't get until we're halfway through the budget cycle. We didn't know the health insurance was going to go up. And actually, the first time they came to us, they said 25% increase. We negotiated and worked it out to the 15%, 16%, and then we had to move to different plans. All these things. You may have noticed that we had to have a plumber down at the town of Marbletown. Our sewage line backed up during this really cold winter. At the high school, we had a water pump that died. We had to replace it in order to give water to students. So there's all kinds of things that can happen in a school year. So we base our budget on estimates. Not every year we're going to have a surplus. Sometimes we will, sometimes we won't. So far, we've been very lucky to have one. I will tell you that we will have less of a fund balance next year because we keep using fund balance and because we keep cutting budget lines. So we are trying to right size in all the different ways that we can. But for right now, yes, we do have a surplus, but we're using that money to offset the costs for the taxpayers, really. So that $4 million budget gap is being filled by $3 million. If we didn't do that, we would have to ask for more money.
And that's exactly great explanation. I appreciate that. Yeah, right. That's all we ask is that the fund balance comes back. And don't get me wrong, it wasn't disparagingly of not budgeting correctly. I get it. There's a million variables. All I was saying is if you do end up with a surplus, hey, feed it back to the taxpayers instead of saying, hey, that's our money. We can do a hire with it. That was my only point.
Sure, no,
Okay.
we are not of that mindset.
Got it.
No.
Perfect. We're on the same page. then.
Yes, okay.
The other piece I'd like to ask is the appropriate word metric out there? How do we rate, for lack of a better word? Where do we stand? If you're trying to sell something, because let's face it, at the end of the day, this is good. I mean this in a good way. You're out here to sell the budget. Hey, we're doing you started out with great stuff. This is what we're giving you. We're giving you a good value, folks, a good bang for the buck. There's one piece of information that I need that I think the public would really like that's not in your brief. And it's where do we stand? Because I know how much we pay per pupil. It's very simple. We can do the math. Because I went to Rondout, right? Good math teacher, so I can do math. So I know how much per pupil spending is, but where's the value? I know where I am in the nation with per pupil spending. My question is, where do we rank academically? And I want to know specifically in mathematics and reading. Those are the two metrics I'm asking for. Because when the little paper, I'll call it, that's put out typically before the budget, correct me if I'm wrong, it comes out probably twice a year, you know, that
Budget newsletter?
the newsletter, thank you. I'm always looking in there. I love reading about the programs and seeing the good things that we're doing. But I think one of the most important pieces is, what am I getting from my money? What am I getting? Where's the value? And I think that would be appropriate. And even if it's not where you want it, at least tell us where it is and then in your objectives, because again, dated, correct me if I'm wrong once again, I believe we were sitting about 32 in the nation at one point in time. And to tell you how dated it is, that was from Cuomo, I believe. So it's dated, I get it. But my point is that we were sitting in the top 5 in spending, but below the 50 percentile in performance. So that's my question is, do we have a metric and what is it?
Sure, yeah, we use state testing as our metric, state testing data. So the New York State gives state testing in reading and math grades 3 through 8. And they also give end of year assessments to the Regents, which I'm sure if you graduated from Rondout, you took the Regents exams. And I'm proud to say that this year's, we just took the ELA Regents in January. We had 89% passage rate. That's 6% higher than last year. That's in the top in Ulster County. With our grades 3 through 8 math testing, we're taking the test this week. So we're taking reading this week. We take math in a couple weeks. I can tell you from last year's data that we had double-digit increases in ELA and math on the state test grades 3 through 8. And we also had an increase in our ELA and physics Regents test last year, but we take the Regents this spring. So all of this data is available on the New York State Department of Education website. You can look at our trend data over the last few years and see how we're performing and how we perform against other districts in Ulster County and what our percentile is in schools and districts across the state. So also our graduation rate is always the top in Ulster County. We're always in the top tier with that too. I think last year we had a 95% graduation rate, and this year we're looking at a 93% graduation rate. So to answer your question, I think you're getting a good return on your investment. You can see students that graduate Rondout are on the college and career readiness path. You can see if you go to, you know, anywhere in the community, if they went to Rondout, you can see crime rate is really low down here because we have a lot of educated people in our community that went to Rondout or went to college or went to the military or went into a trade. So we feel like we're not only giving you a return on investment, we feel like once they enter our school system and leave our school system, they're not only ready that year, but I think they're ready for the future and beyond. So just look at what we're doing in the community, look at all the metrics that are taking place. You can see, I feel like everyone has a very well-educated community, and I think everyone's going to be happy with the product that we're creating for you.
How about ranking nationally though? Where do we stand in comparison to other states?
I don't know that off the top of my head, but again, every state's have different metrics. I mean, you
Okay.
have to look at like SAT, ACT, NAEP testing.
Understood.
That's given to like all of this, but like our state test doesn't align with Florida's or doesn't align with California's. But
There.
that's what you want to look at. I always look at regionally, how do we rank with Ulster County districts? And then I would start branching out. How do we rank with districts in New York State? And you know, you look at those metrics, regions test, state testing, and our graduation rate.
Thank you.
Do you have a few minutes to just take a couple questions from the town board?
Sure,
Okay.
absolutely.
Any questions?
I have a few. What are the population demographics for school age, for pupil age students going forward? Does that trend continue?
So in Rondout right now, our demographics that we currently serve, student demographics, we're about 85% white, Caucasian,
No, I mean, what population wise? What do the projections look like for pupils enrollment?
Oh, what's enrollment next year?
You mean numbers or
What do the demographic trends look like? Is it
It's-
continuing to decline? Is it flattening? Is it increasing?
It's the same, that you talk about like race, like you're talking about like Hispanics.
No, the population.
No, the-
How many
Is it
people
gonna
are
continue
in
to
your?
decline?
Oh, you're talking about enrollment, okay, enrollment, okay, great, okay, see, when you say demographics, I'm thinking, white, Hispanic, African American.
I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah, that's what demographics are, okay, good, thank you, I was making, I'm hearing it right, okay, so, our enrollment is projected to is declining. When I showed you that visual, and we're projected to have maybe possibly 100 students enter kindergarten next year. In years past, if you guys went to Rondout back in the day, you had a graduating class of what? 240, 250. Now we have kids coming in at about 100 students per grade level.
And then looks like you're using up 4.4 million of your fund balance this year. What is the remaining balance after that?
For the fund balance,
Yeah.
our reserves will be about $6 million.
Does that include reserves or is that just fund balance?
That's just reserves. Fund balance, we won't, we're basically using all of it that we were gonna have left over. We may have a little bit left over at the end, but we won't have. You're allowed by state regulation to have 4% remaining at the end of the year. We're using a good amount of it. I'm hopeful that we'll have 4% because that's how we keep generating that reinvestment every year. And that means that we're actually being fiscally responsible when it comes to our spending choices. But for right now, I'm gonna say we're using it all. We're breaking even.
And when I asked about parcel numbers, in terms of the allocation of the tax levy among the towns in the district, when you said parcel numbers rather than
The-
valuation,
The number of parcels. the
does that
population.
mean that a town with 100-acre parcels has a lower percentage of the levy than a town that might be the exact same size that has 1,000, that has 1-acre parcels?
I guess that's a two-part question, right? So back to you, it depends on like, so for example, the town of Warsing, I would consider probably pretty rural, right? The town of Warsing plays only 4% of the levy, but we only have so many parcels within there. So it's the number of parcels that we tax within each town. So if it's densely populated, we tax more because there's more people. So it is more about the number of parcels, not the size of the parcels or the value of the parcels.
But I think it's tied to total value of those.
Yes,
parcels.
exactly.
Right, so if Marbletown is $100 million value and we're $50 million value, they would pay more because the total value of their parcels is less.
And
it's
that's
value, it's
actually, theoretically, you just said that's actually what takes place tomorrow, does pay.
So then it's value, it's not number
It
of
is,
parcels.
it is done, yeah.
It's value, but I mean, you generate more value with more properties.
But it's value, it's not number of parcels.
I
Well, the
feel that
chart
it's
was,
a combination.
the chart was the 30% versus, like, I guess the question that the board was having is, how did are those percentages the same every year, or do those percentages get set with the final roll?
They may fluctuate by 1% here or there, but they do not change much at all every year. Marbletown has always been the largest paying tax entity in but we have the most number of most largest part of land. I guess that, you know, like the taxing map is the largest for Marbletown. It's not just the values of the houses in Marbletown. It's also the number of houses.
I appreciate you guys coming down here and walking us through this. I'm curious in terms of your pie chart and your breakdown of the budget. How does this compare, how you're allocating administrative capital program compared to other districts in Ulster County? Is that reasonable, 75% on program, 10% administrative, or are we high on administrative? Or
I think we're on par with our neighboring districts for certain. Program is always gonna be the largest part of your budget because it should be, right? We're an education entity. We should be spending the most amount of money to educate kids, so our students and the like. So you may see maybe 70% in another district, but it's always gonna be much larger than half of their budget goes to program in all
we're in the
districts.
range of.
We're in the same range as our neighboring districts, yes.
And then. As Mr. Dunn suggested, you know, we can calculate the cost per student. I'm curious if you have a target cost per student, where we stand.
Yeah, we definitely, you see with our cost per expenditure, it's up there. We're second in Ulster County. So we definitely want to get that cost per pupil down, at least in the median of Ulster County. And that's something that we're doing. When you saw that chart, when we start continuing to, with the declining enrollment, the declining staff, you know, the two biggest expenditures in a district is salaries and fringes and insurance, right? Staff, that's your biggest expenditures in a district, is the human capital. And our last 2 years, you can see we are trying to match our staff enrollment with our student enrollment in decline, and that should be a better ratio than what we have now. What we said, we've been here 2 years, and we're continuing to chip away in it. We're hoping that cost per pupil, you know, gets within the median range in Ulster.
Do you know what the median is?
It's probably 35, no, about 30,000, I would say.
30.
We're at like
We
38.
have a chart we did in the big presentation that they probably saw. We just didn't want to take up too much time
And it's online. That budget presentation is online. You
with
can-
our standing.
cost book.
I just got one more. Your sports, how many teachers you have in sports? Your sports, all your sports.
How many sports do we have?
Sports directors, how many? sports
We have one athletic director.
Coaches, how many all that are paid?
Yeah, they get stipends. I think if you're a head like varsity coach, it's a $5,500 stipend. And then if you
But
get
they're also teachers, they also practice, right?
yeah, some are teachers, some are community members. Just depends who applies for the position.
Because I know when they built the football field, the school was ranked 1-2 back in 2000, and he went steadily down. They never came back, they're still not back. That was a big waste of money building that field.
Yeah, that was part of the $60 million capital
Yes,
project.
yes, way over budget. And the cost of maintenance of that field is waste of money. It's cheaper to maintain grass than that field. I built them. Way over money, that's way over budget to build that place for that school. We don't have an athletic department and run it. Went to the school, it's not that good.
It is, I mean, it is a beautiful facility. We do
But-
host a lot of
When
events there.
when Kinks was not running, they were using our field. Did we get any donations to keep it up, maintain it?
We do charge for people to use the facility,
They rented the football field of us,
right? We do charge, yes.
so did it help with the tax on it, like?
Yeah,
help the
anytime we get revenue, it always will help the taxpayers.
So
But those are numbers gotta be watched, where if this doesn't work for the sports and stuff, it can't go to the budget. It's a waste of money.
So I'll close out with the questions. Thank you for coming here. I have two questions for you. One, very practical. Can I share your PowerPoint on the town website?
Absolutely.
Okay, and my second question, because everyone asked such good questions and many of which I had sort of had on my list for you, so I won't repeat them again. On the topic of taxing, assessments, revenue, I'm curious to hear whether or not you'd be willing to discuss ways that we can together go to the county to discuss the way the IDA is issuing pilots. Because I know I, for one, feel that we should have more say, especially given how much I sympathize with the budgetary constraints that you have and the revenue that we have to raise through tax dollars and how difficult it is to constantly be making decisions between a rock and a hard place, it feels, and the burden that that puts on our residents. I understand the concept behind pilots, but it does really impact what, like how the taxes are distributed. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that. I know that you came to the public hearing on one of them
Yeah.
and whether or not we could talk about ways that we could maybe see if we could have a voice together on that.
Absolutely, we would love the collaboration, because I know we would all benefit from it, with having, industry come in, it'll help us out, it helps us out in some ways it doesn't, but I think it's a good talking point to say, is this gonna, if these businesses and pilots come in, is it gonna help the town of Rochester, and how will it also benefit, the school district?
Yeah.
I'm very much a proponent to talking about things other than pilots. Like pilots can exist, but at a smaller level if
Yeah.
they want to invest in the community or in the school.
Right.
So I always like to have a discussion with the business if we can, and that's why we came. But can you invest in the school? Because what they get on a pilot actually comes out of the tax levy.
Yeah.
So we don't levy for the piloted amount. And that can be hurtful for our ability to keep maintaining.
But they can do an education contribution instead of a pilot, and that, benefits them because they're not have to pay, all their taxes up front, but also benefits us because we're getting that revenue.
The revenue, yeah.
So I definitely would be a willing partner.
Okay, great. I'd love to follow up with
Yes.
you, maybe after the budget.
Please do,
The-
yes, reach out, we'd love to do collaboration.
But yeah, okay, thank you.
And thank you for having us, and again, moving forward, we hope to be here for a long time, we would love to come here every year, or have us whenever you need us to talk about things. Because we probably will be going out to the community in December to approve that EPC, will be a $2.1 million savings, and we won't have a tax impact on the community, but we always have two focuses when we develop a budget. First, we have to protect student programs, we gotta make sure that students, you're getting a good return on your investment. I know, I'm sure some of you have grandkids or kids that have gone to the school district. We will make sure they have creative, innovative programs that we offer. And the second point we always focus on when we develop a budget, we gotta be fiscally responsible to our taxpayers.
Hey, one question, one thing, the school budget's going up, but now we don't have school books to pay for it, you got these computers. Where did that money go from? Well, we have no more books at school, so that's cheaper, we have the little computers.
We actually purchase them through BOCES and get a return on those purchases, and we have a schedule, just like.
No,
what-
I know, but I'm saying, we used to buy all these books.
Yeah.
Paper. Now we don't spend money on that stuff.
Believe it or not.
What's the
we still
savings
do
on
it.
that?
We actually
So
still
the
do
question,
buy
where's
books.
that savings on that?
We still do buy books. There is some textbooks, there's actually new programs, we have new math
I just,
programs.
was the last question about that. I only do a Chromebook stuff now, they will do it.
Thank you. You definitely said more than expected out of it. No, we're happy to have these conversations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, so moving on to our next agenda item, we have the public comment portion of our meeting where we allow members of the public to address the board. This is not a question and answer session. It was really nice to have a question and answer session, but this period of the meeting is not a question and answer session. So we do ask that if you want to hear any board responses, that just stick around for town board member time where we may address some of the comments made. Did we have a sign-in sheet?
I do that.
Okay.
There's nobody on it.
Okay, all right, so is anyone here who would like to address the board?
I would.
Okay,
I just want to say thank you very much, whoever, if it was the entire board, Aaron, if it was you, Michael, Kate, whoever it was. I think this was a grand idea. I'd like to see more of it. This is fantastic because no good can come without communication. And this honestly is the first communication I've had besides with Deb Barbarino. I know her as Debbie Troing because we went to school together. just small side issues with the district, but to have the superintendent and the assistant superintendent to come out, I think this is fantastic. We certainly need to continue this dialogue. And I'm gonna throw you a huge kudo of what you just closed with. Absolutely correct. Getting them on board for issues like this IDA is spot on. So I appreciate that as a taxpayer and a resident. I believe in giving credit where credit is due, so I applaud you for that, and thank you very much for doing that. With that, I have been seeing enough of my wife, so I could usually consider it rude not to stay for the entire meeting, but please excuse me because I need to go home and spend some family time. So, again, I apologize for that, but, maybe somebody will say, thank God. But, thank you very much, and thanks for doing this evening.
Thanks, Trevor.
Would anyone else like to address the board?
One thing I've noticed, I'm going off topic here with the school budget. A lot of our committees, especially budget and judicial committees, have a spot that has an alternate there available to step in the event of something happening, somebody not making a meeting, somebody not qualified or has to recuse themselves from some type of application. Was there ever any consideration for, and I know it's a question, for considering an alternate position for the Board of Assessment Review? Because I don't see anything available for that in the event that somebody comes down sick for that one day. And I think it would be imperative to have something like that, because we could end up with the one day of BAR and that one person can't make it. And now we're stuck between a rock and a hard place with nowhere to go with. So I just want to present that to the board as an option, something to think about.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah, first of all, thanks for the presentation about the school. Appreciate that, and the question and answer session. I'm here to talk about the assessment. So yeah, a couple things, partly because my understanding is there's a deadline coming up for the tentative assessment to be filed. So I wanted to make sure to, go on the record before that kind of gets locked in. And first of all, I also want to mention that, which I forgot to mention the last time, that you all have mentioned before about there's nobody here when all the sort of general grunt work is going on, and the often unglamorous work of doing these meetings, and then when there's an issue, then people come and they participate. I totally understand that. I've been on boards and committees before, and it's all invisible until there's an issue, and then suddenly everybody has an opinion. So I understand that, and I appreciate that. That being said, there really is, as you know, an issue with this assessment, in terms of, we've talked ad nauseum, or you've heard ad nauseum about the issues with GAR, but most notably with the assessor, arbitrary and capricious, the whole let's make a deal system of giving assessments, no written methodology, no standardized methodology, which I'm not sure if it's been mentioned before, but there is the possibility of corruption. There's no possible way of knowing what these assessments are based on. Is there any favor trading or influence? So those are some real serious issues. And I guess from my perspective, I think about when I've, done service before, or why somebody would be on a town board. And I guess I can think of two reasons. One is maybe to do good and to do something for the community. And in terms of doing something good, I mean, there really is an issue here. There's this is a crisis basically. And so there's a crisis as opportunity. And so if you are on the board to do something good, then this is a chance to do some real good and address it. I mean, and the board does have authority to take actions. Based on my research, the board could even remove the assessor, at least hold a hearing, talk to OTPS, appoint an alternate assessor. I don't know all the options, but my understanding is that the board could take action, because as the person that appointed the assessor, it does have the ultimate authority. The second thing, for what reason I can think of why somebody would be on a board, and of course it could be a mixture of both, is, for personal interest, political career, or to have power or something like that. So if it were me, I would also think, hey, this is a real crisis. This is an opportunity for me or the board, as part of my brand or our brand, to really own something, to really have something that we could solve and get ahead of and own. I mean, the campaign materials basically write themselves. There've been numerous articles in the newspaper about all the issues with the town of Rochester assessment. instead of it being something that could be like a source of embarrassment or problems or litigation or whatever it might be, it could be an opportunity to have something that's really positive and responsive, you know, and so then that would be something to run on in the future, or maybe even a springboard to other office, or even, you know, along, whatever it might be, whatever those reasons might be. So I guess from my perspective, if it were me and there were this deadline coming up and I understood about these the challenges and things like that, or, you know, even was mentioned before, like personal liability and things. If it were me, I would take a lot of action, try to get ahead of it. I mean, we know who the problem is, the assessor. If it were me, I would really investigate what could be done to solve this problem. And then use it to my advantage and also feel good about the good I had done for the community. So that's what I would do. And, you know, as we've heard for the last several weeks, people have come and they've talked about what the issues are. And the response from the board has, for the most part, been, you're confused, you don't understand. You're confused, you just don't understand. And I just want to say that I'm not confused about the assessment process, but I am truly confused about why the board is responding the way it is and why it isn't solving the problem. I'm truly confused as to why there isn't. We heard what you said, we did all the research, here's what the plan is, here's how we are going to address this. I truly do not understand that. So yes, I am confused about that. And again, as I mentioned, my understanding is there's a deadline of the tentative role being filed. So I would again request the board to respond differently while there's still time.
Would anyone else like to press the board? Barbara?
Yep. I totally disagree with that gentleman. This is not a crisis. This is something that's been in the making for 35 years that I've lived here. As far as the assessor is doing what he's supposed to do. Like every other town does assessments. As it was stated in the paper, we have not done assessment in this town in years. So to say it's a crisis? The town put out information last year about the assessment coming up. Now, why am I coming to every meeting? Because I realize that it is my personal responsibility to be informed, to be involved, because if I don't, then I have nothing to say. Is the way I look at it. Like you said, how many people are here? Hardly any. Why aren't they packing every single meeting like they did that last meeting that I was at, where you put a standing room only? So I totally disagree. I totally agree. This is not a crisis. I knew this was gonna happen someday in this town. When you have people not built, you're building with no building permit, you're putting structures on your thing, not reporting it. What do you think, you're not gonna get caught at some point? So I totally disagree. This is not a crisis. This was a long time in the making. And I don't feel this is the assessor at all. He's only doing what you're supposed to do in a New York State assessment that they do in every single other town. So I totally disagree with that. And I'm sorry that I had to I didn't think I was gonna say anything. But it's like, no, it's like this has gotten so out of hand. There's things in the paper that people are lying about, saying there's only 30 properties that were reduced when it was not. You have people saying that the assessor's going and lowering their taxes when they go in to buy just an appointment. They're not. I've lived in this town for 35 years. When they're gonna tell people in an election that they're gonna tell you how many kids you can have, you can't burn firewood, and how many, you can't do this and that. And Pam Duke loses an election because people in the town believe that. There is so much gossip and crazy stuff that goes on in this town. So I'm gonna be here at every meeting. I think people need to get involved, and if you wanna have something to say, then you need to be here, listening, involved, and knowing what's going on.
Jerry?
Thank you.
Move fast then.
Couple matters, one of which I already brought up to the board before, involving my official position as emergency management director and assisting or trying to assist our firefighters, our volunteer firefighters. A couple issues has come or been brought forth to me that I'm requesting that the board possibly inquire of our attorney to find out that if we're able to, in fact, supplement by way of fuel with the excessive amounts of fuel we're paying costs right now for our firefighters, because it was brought to my attention that if somebody, in fact, claims under the New York State IT 201 form, the $200 deduction, then, and again, I'm asking this because I'm not an attorney, but our attorney should know that. And if she doesn't know that, she should be able to find that out. So I'd like to know if spinning my wheels, because this is now the third meeting I'm going to, but this is of importance because I'd like to see this through and help our firefighters. But I also want to make sure what we are doing is on the up and up and totally legal to do. So it was just brought up that there might be a conflict there. So I would request anybody from the board or all of you to possibly look into that. So that's enough said for that. And you can get back to me whenever. The other thing I'd like to just bring up as a private issue here is this circular that came through residential customers from Rooted in Rochester. And it is interesting because I believe the date in which they're looking for a vote for the three priorities of which I'm not going to go through every one of them, but I found issues with a number of them, if not every one of them, because it's basically a duplication of what we already have existing. And especially one of the ones, number 5, involving town code comprehensive plan. Well, you're looking at one of the persons who spent 2.5 years working back in 2009 and then again 2011 in doing a town plan and zoning and things of such. So we're constantly updating that. So I don't know why that would even be put into this matter. But the thing that first stuck out was, again, this might be a legal issue that I would like to bring to our attorney. And that is all of Rochester, this is directly off of this ballot. All of town of Rochester residents, 13 years of age or older, are eligible to vote. I don't know where they got that, but that is not legal in the United States of America, that you can vote. And being as this is money, this is how we will, there's going to be funds coming out of this. I understand, and I did discuss some of this with Kate, that this may be part of that, what do you call it, grant or something that came through. So that's money, that's state money, that's tax money, that's tax dollars. And putting something like that here, that you are permitted to vote if you're 13 years of age, I don't think so. And again, I'm speaking not as an attorney, but I would wish that this be determined before the 15th of May, because there might be some legal issues, and I might be one that would bring legal issue to that. A number of the other things in here are interesting to include. I don't know where the people who are so rooted in the community that are using places like for arts and music festivals, and they're saying hosted at venues like Tedder's or Skate Time. Tedder's is in the town of Olive. So we're not even talking about something within our town, but this is this money has been put forth to be utilized, from what I understand, for our town use. So there's an issue there. And Skate Time was already brought to a real head a few years back, in which it was pulled from being voted on because that was going to be the purchase of that building and so forth, which of course it since has been purchased, and whatever they're doing there, I assume by seeing the vehicles in the parking lot, it's doing well. It's doing well as a business. And the last thing, as far as that number one question or thing to look for the vote. We also had a local business owner come here to know, and there was a lot of different comments being brought up. But one of those persons was the owner of Atwood Speedway, in which that person put forth, and I can remember myself, my wife and daughter were here, and we all spoke that if they were looking to do some different, or he, I should say, was looking to do some different music venues and things like that. And this was all knocked down. But excuse me, now I see it right here and I'm going, this is a local person with a business with a large piece of property, has nothing to do with, so you don't have to like racing cars or other things like that, or noise or such, because it's asking for the different types, and I found this interesting. A music festival based on Be Well, Raise Hell. It's exactly what it says here. I don't think Mr. Palmer was talking about raising any kind of hell at a country music type festival or otherwise. So I am simply asking the board, and I'll let it go at that. Would you please, whoever put this thing together, they need to do a little bit more homework, I think, on that. And I trust this board that you will find out. And again, I'd like to know who came up with 13 years of age is a legal age to vote for something in which our funds are being spent. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who'd like to address the board? Yes?
Thanks. I just have some note, I'm not a great public speaker, but so last week I spoke also and I kind of opened with basically that I don't think any of you guys are trying to do like something bad here. Like I think that you want to do good. This is my impression. I don't think that you want people to be negatively impacted by this reval. And when I left last week, I was just thinking, I was like, what I saw, I felt sort of endorsed that perspective. What I saw was you were like very excited about this toilet that had gotten installed in the park. I was like, that's not something that is super glorious, but you know, that's, if you care about people, that's something that you would be happy about. And then I saw this other board member who's not here offering her time to write grants. If anybody has written grants, they're a huge pain. It's like a lot of work. And so I was thinking about those things and I was like, you know, I'm seeing like competing things here. One is evidence that like you guys are invested and trying to do good, but then also sort of being kind of deaf, I guess, to what people are saying. There are a lot of people saying things to you about the assessment. Anyway, a lot of people with concerns is what I'm trying to say. So like this guy just said, I understand that there is a week before the tentative roll is filed. At that point, something, it's on the official record. But until that point, you guys have some ability, there is some action that you can take to withhold that or stop that from being put on the record officially. After that happens, there's nothing you can do. So I guess that's 1 week away. And what I'm saying is, as people who care about the people that you represent, this seems like a great opportunity to demonstrate to your community that you care. And similarly to what Devon said, in a way that is really impactful to the community. Like the people are here. I mean, not that many today, but people are showing up and they are speaking about something that is really important. When it's important, people show up, right? So I don't know how many people as excited about the toilet, but anyway, I digress. One thing slightly separate, but related. One thing that was highlighted as like an advantage or a big positive for hiring GAR was that my understanding is that they were able to do like a huge they were able to get a lot of data in a short amount of time, and the advantage of that is that it's like a snapshot, right, in time, as opposed to the assessor going out to like every different house, over the course of like 2 years, at which point the data in the reval would be some of it old, some of it new. Okay. So I understand that that is one of the advantages. What I'm wondering though is, like, what was he doing up until GAR did all the work, all the heavy lifting? Like, was he doing any assessments? I that is something I am confused about. Another thing is I heard him say, this is a quote, my job as the assessor is to treat all owners fairly and to ensure all assessments are up to date. But one of the reasons that this is such a big reval is that, again, as I understand, we're at an equalization rate of 53%, and we're supposed to be at 100%. The whole aim of this is to get to 100%. Again, I'm just sort of like, what has he been doing? Like, if his stated goal is to make sure that everything is up to date, how has it gotten to 53%? You know what I mean? I'm confused about that. So, those are kind of like these two things. Not only am I confused about them, but I'm also just like, what has he done? And have you, as the people who are responsible for, maybe not responsible, I don't know exactly, but you guys are in charge. Like, how are you evaluating his performance, you know? So let me see. I guess, yeah, just to kind of close, well, just follow up on that is that he kind of, shirked his duties perhaps for years, pawned off the responsibilities to another entity that was expensive, and now he's giving people $100,000 off, $14,000 off without even like looking at things, or maybe looking at things, who knows? I'm like, if I speak out, is he gonna give me like a worse deal? That's like a legitimate fear. But so now he's doing something that is not treating people fairly, which is, as I said, his own stated goal. Is that his view of what his job is, right? Which I imagine is what you also feel that he should be doing. So anyway, I guess just to kind of wrap it up, I just want to come back to this like May 1st date and just ask that you do something about that. That's 1 week away, right? You have 7 days to do something, and I would really like to see something happen, basically. Thank you.
Yes.
Can we use this grant to help our town? Like, get an audit over top of this assessor, it's not doing his job. Hire an accountant to go through the books, where everything's going.
Where's the tax money coming from?
What'd you say?
I said, where's the money coming to pay for that person, everything?
Well, that's what I'm saying, can we use that grant money to help us? Instead of coming with more tax money, take this grant to hire the accountant to go through the books.
I'll address that when we get to the town board
That's-
overtime.
That's all I'm asking.
Would anyone else like to address the board?
Sorry.
We'll go with someone who hasn't spoken yet.
Sarah Dillon. Yeah, so. I totally agree with Devon and some other people that spoke. I totally disagree with Barb and what she said. It is a crisis. The fact that the reassessment was done is not a problem. It's the results and the number of errors, that's what the huge problem is. It's obvious the assessor didn't do any sanity checking. There is crazy numbers which he should have, if he just did a check of the 10 most expensive properties and the 10 least expensive properties, he would have seen errors, but obviously he couldn't have done that. The assessor is making deals and and again, I'd say he's not doing his job. I've had 2 different offers of assessment reduction before he even hears my questions or concerns. But he won't fix errors on my property cards. And in fact, I have 3 different property cards and I have no idea which one is being used. The one online is a handwritten card from the year 2000 when I bought my property. I had to go into the assessor's office and ask him for the official property card. He printed it out for me. Then on Monday, and I found more errors than I saw on the online stuff that was, because there's more information on your property card than they post on ProSgar or Beacon. Monday, I looked at my link and there was a 3rd property card up there, which I saved and printed out, which is a good thing that I did, because today that one has disappeared and it's gone back to the handwritten card for 2000. What is he doing? He's not doing his job. He's not giving the information to the taxpayers. He's changing things left and right. I had a question about neighborhoods. One property card says I'm neighborhood 4. One property card says I'm neighborhood 1. I have no clue. It's just like the data is there. I don't know if the one he printed out of his office was one that he was going to do to make a deal with me. And the one that appeared online might have been the real one. And then he took that down because I also noticed that my neighbor had a new one. And today that one's gone as well. Like they're switching back and forth. And I have not remotely even considered accepting any of his deals because I'm really worried about giving up my rights to fight as I find more errors on what they based my assessment on. I have spent the last 2 weeks, I have read the New York State Assessor's Manual. I've learned all the different codes. I have found more errors that I wouldn't have known about unless I read the Assessor's Manual. I've read the Board of Assessment Review Manual to know what I should expect. And it's the burden is on us, but if they're hiding all the data, how are we supposed to fight anything? We don't even know what was used to do this assessment. So that's my rant for now.
Can you clarify, use of different property cards, is that on the GAR site or is that on the Beacon site?
I don't see any property card on the GAR site. I just see some data.
When you said something was changing, where,
So it's on the Beacon site.
okay,
When there's a link that says your property card.
Thank you.
I clicked on that link previously, and it was this handwritten card from 2000 that just basically has maybe the deed and it has the number of acres. It has no other information. And so I went into the assessor's office. He printed out the fancier one, the modern one. And then Monday, there was the modern one in that link. And luckily I saved it and printed it out because today it was gone. And it's back to the 2000 handwritten card
on the Beacon site?
on the Beacon site.
Thank you.
And then same thing with my neighbor. I showed him that there was a new property card. I printed it out his and saved his and emailed it to him. And today that's gone as well. It's back to his original. I think he purchased his property in 2000 as well. And I think it's back to that one as well.
Someone had their hand up back here? Maybe? No? Clayton?
Yeah, everybody else is gone. I'm trying to sit here, I wanted to ask it originally, trying to figure out how do I put this in form of a statement rather than a question? I can't come up with one, so I'm just gonna ask it. in August of 2025. The assessor was appointed by the board. What was the term he was appointed for? What was the length? So I guess it goes back to how long are we going to have to deal with this with a slated assessment also happening in, I believe, 2029? Will the board take action so that we don't have to face this in the future? I don't really know how to present that without it being a question, so.
All right. Has everyone had a chance to address the board? Okay, so I'll go ahead and close the public comment portion of the meeting. Now it's town board member time. I do have a lot of clarifying information that I'd like to share. My general practice is to let the town board go first, but I would like to start by clarifying what the Rooted in Rochester mailer was, just because it sounds like there's a lot of misunderstanding about what that was and what it represents. And I think I probably know the most about that than anyone at the table. So that campaign is a community-oriented project. That is, the project itself is a community organizing project with the goal of engaging the community and consensus building and generating ideas and thinking about community projects and solutions. It was started last year. It's funded by not a taxpayer funded grant. It's funded by a private grant that was meant for this type of work, that is meant to teach officials, but community members, how to do some organizing work. So that survey is for that project. It is not tied to the town budget. It is not tied to taxpayer dollars. The vote is not a promise to make any purchases. There was an email that went out that was forwarded to me that made it sound like the reval and this Rooted in Rochester survey are connected, and this is voting on the budget. It's absolutely false information. This is the town has a state mandated budget process that we go through that's 100% public. And as people have brought up, we have these very public, open discussions about everything that we want to do in town for August, September, October, and November of every year. And this is not part of that. So there were months of community meetings and open events that the organizer put together, and it culminated in an event where people submitted ideas that were going to go on this ballot and that the town could vote for, to see what are the things that the whole town is interested in seeing in their community, not what are people interested in seeing taxpayer dollars be spent on. So it's not tied to any of that. Now, if they came back and said, hey, 500 people voted for a new comprehensive plan, well, that would be some really nice feedback for the town board to get, but it's not a decision, or there's no decisions, budgetary decisions being made by this mailer. So I feel personally like it was very irresponsible and upsetting that the word was that the messaging got out that this was connected to the reval, when there was absolutely no information to make anyone believe that that was the case, that those two concepts got put together. And I feel for the people who have been organizing this project, who were sent, who were forwarded those emails. But just know that no budgetary decisions are ever made in this way, and nor can they be made in this way. And there's nothing in that literature about spending taxpayer dollars. So it's more about what we see even now, community organizing, people coming together, and this group is organizing around, you know, positive community solutions that can bring people together. That's what they're doing, and that's what that represents. And maybe they'll come to the board and they're probably going to share the results of that with us, but it's not a binding decision to raise the tax levy or to spend money. So the vote that is mentioned on that page is just about who they're saying can vote on that ballot. It's a non-binding, non-legal, just, you know, more informative, not an official vote of anything that has any legal or budgetary results. So with that, I have other things that if you guys don't get to for clarifying, but is there anything that you would like to share?
Just keep going.
You want me to keep going? Well, I think one thing that I just, I wanted to address, I'll try to lump these things by category. Our assessor was appointed to a full term in, starting October 1st, I believe, 2025, and it's a 6-year term. Assessors are public officials that are certified by New York State and can only be removed for just cause. So just like other workers, there are rights and laws that there are protections put in place. So the assessor is not an at-will employee. Before this term, our assessor had been appointed in 2021 and was a part-time assessor. He was, we had a shared services agreement between the town of Rochester, the town of Rosendale, and the town of Marbletown. So we had a part-time assessor and one other position in the assessor's office. And so he was in the office 20 hours roughly a week or less, depending on what he was doing in the different towns, and came to the board every year and asked to increase staff so that he could continue to work on doing the work of assessment in the town. And what was he doing while GAR was doing all the work? Well, the GAR was hired to assist the assessor in the process. So everything that was happening all of last year in terms of the property data cards that are on record, that are physical cards in the assessor's office, were all organized and processed and sent to GAR. So everything that they started with was the physical card for each property. That's what that first mailing was based on. You know, just being in the office, you know, the assessor, he was working. There's a lot of other things that go into assessment. I also wanted to say that if anything that's happening on the Beacon site has nothing to do right now, the assessor has no control over what's going on the Beacon site. That is Ulster County. So Ulster County has their own staff that oversee that site. When the final roll is filed, that site gets updated. But I don't know what I can ask them what's going on, but that doesn't, right now, that doesn't have anything to do with the process we're going through, because the Beacon site does not get updated until after grievance day. So that reflects final numbers, not tentative or preliminary numbers. So I don't know what's going on. It is a new site. And I also know that there have been a lot of frustrations with state and county agencies in terms of how they're receiving our information and how they're getting back to towns on doing some of this work because we do have to coordinate with them, but there shouldn't be any changes to that site based on what's happening here. So I just wanted to clarify that. I also, I think there are a lot of claims that the assessor is quote unquote cutting deals. And I am not sitting in on every single conversation, but I have a very good understanding of what's happening. And I think using language like cutting deals or accusing someone of corruption based on people's perception of a deal being cut is not something that I can sign on to or make any decisions off of in the position that I'm in. I've sat there and watched some of these conversations, and it's a data model. And when you put an adjustment in, there's a very quick determination of how that impacts the valuation of a property. So saying I can lower that by $20,000, maybe that's the language that the assessor's using, but he's not just making a choice based on who's walking in the door. That has been what I have seen. So I just want to clarify that we also have I've heard from a lot of people that have had very positive experiences, that they are positively impacted by this process, that they have a better understanding of what assessments are and what this means. So I think there are different perspectives that we see. And I just wanted to share that. I also hear the perspectives that everyone is sharing, and that, we do watch and listen to everything, and we consider and we look into everything. Everything, basically, we're going back and we're doing research. That doesn't mean, though, this claim that the town board can do something about filing the tentative roll is that it's not something that, but this isn't something that a town board can do. So there's a lot of statutory decisions that really show that that only is basically something that the state can interfere with. So I wanted to try to clarify some of the information that's being shared, because everyone talks about wanting to know facts. And I think that there are, we've been getting accused at the last couple meetings of talking down to people by saying that this is complicated. And I just want to say that I'm not saying that to talk down to anyone, because I think it's complicated. I think this is complicated. I think it's hard to understand. And to me, that's not an insult. That's just to recognize that, this is a town of 5,000 parcels with lots of varying everything. And there's a lot of factors that go into this. There's a lot of factors that go into the tax levy, the school tax, the assessments, multiple towns in a single taxing district. To say that when we say this is complicated, I don't think I've heard anyone at this table look into the audience and say, you don't understand. I don't think I've heard anyone say that. So, but you may have heard us say, well, yeah, this is really complicated, because from where I'm sitting, I think it's complicated. And I'm not trying to insult or belittle anyone when I say that, because that's how I feel about this topic for myself. So I wanted to clarify those things. And I also wanted to share that I have reached out to our state legislators, and there is some really positive state legislation about volunteer firefighters and increasing the tax credit they get. And I'm hoping to have conversations with both Oberacker and Mayor's office in the next couple weeks. I told them that this was a priority for our community, and Oberacker in particular, this is one of his priorities also. So I think we can really capitalize on that as well. So did you have anything you wanted to share?
Well, you covered a lot of it. I'm not in town hall every day. I'm probably there more than some people would like. But I can echo what Erin was saying. The experience I've had when I've talked to people who have met with the assessor is that it was informative. It was a good conversation. I know some people haven't been happy, but for the most part, and this includes when we had sessions and people were coming in with questions and not understanding things, and then having met with the assessor, their questions were clarified. So I know there are always things that people can improve on. I think I know that Erin is constantly having conversations with staff, looking at different ways to improve communications, looking at ways to make staff more accessible to people. I have not seen any evidence of corruption. I think it's a hard job. I think they're doing a good job of it. And I want to emphasize again, this is an ongoing process. This is something that's not, May 1st is not a terminal date. That is a tentative role. As a board, we file a tentative budget, and that's one phase in a budget. It's not the final budget. It has to go through multiple reviews and gets modified beyond that. The same is true for the tentative role. Yes, it gets published. Yes, it's a document that is publicly available. But the purpose of that is so that people can go in, look at the role, and have conversations and prepare if necessary for grievance day. I mean, to me, this is a process with a lot of checks and balances. And I think we're in one initial phase right now. When the tentative role comes out, we'll be in another phase where you can have conversations with the assessor directly. You can potentially sign, I can't remember, stipulation. If you do get changes to your property, if that doesn't work, you go in front of a board of 5 members of the community. You can ask them, provide your data to them, and they can potentially make a change. If you disagree with them, you can go through the SCAR process and go in front of an arbitrator and actually present the case to them, and they can make a decision. If you don't like their decision, you can go and you can actually file the word that I can't say, certiorari, blah, 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 and try and talk to a judge about it. So there are multiple opportunities beyond May 1st to actually ensure that the data is correct. And you could do the whole thing again next year. So I think, I've been highlighting to people the role that gets filed this year. This happens every year. So if somebody isn't able to get a change this year, or if something changes in their property, a structure is no longer there, they can come back in and talk to the assessor next year and make a change to that. So this is just a continuous process. And I think, as a board, we're all very invested, as people have mentioned, and I appreciate them saying that, in ensuring that this is done properly, that we're listening to people, that we're making ourselves available to people. When I look at things that I can do, those are the kinds of things that I focus on. We've been having sessions on the weekends. I wish they were better attended. Sometimes we have a lot of people here. Sometimes it's 1 or 2, like our board meetings. I tell people to call me. I've had a few people call me. I've talked to them directly. I've had emails. And so we're trying to make sure that we're communicating as much as possible with people. And if there are things that I could be doing better, I'll take that feedback as well. So I'm always looking for ideas on how to talk to more people, except for Jerry. That's pretty reliable that Jerry and I get to talk, which I always appreciate. One last thing in terms of the question about equalization, and it is confusing, and I every time I try to explain it to people, I confuse myself even more. But the reason why we are at 53% is because you're constantly chasing the market. And so equalization is something the state calculates. They calculate it based off of sale prices of homes compared to what they're assessed at. So if a home is assessed at $200,000 and it sells for $400,000, and that is the average across the board, your equalization is 50%. So the state is automatically going to add 50% to everybody's school bill across the board based off of that. If it goes up to 800,000 and it's a 200,000 house, they're going to tell you you're at 25% and force you to raise your entire town up. And that's part of why you want to be equalized at 100%, because when the state does that, that applies to everyone. If you're at 100%, you can change individual parcels based off of their value and make sure that you're not impacting everybody with the same flat percentage that the state is forcing us. So that's why they say you have to continuously do reassessments, because the state is going to tell us what our equalization rate is, and the school automatically adds that into everybody's school bill regardless. So that's, it's not for lack of trying. It's they get, every time a house sells, they get information about that. They look at the assessed value, they look at the home value, and they have to try and adjust based off of that. So you're always chasing the market when we do that. So I know it's not what people want to hear, but that's the crazy real estate market that's going on. And that's what's making it really hard for people to afford to live in this town. And those are separate issues that we as a board want to address, but we can't affect how the state is telling us to apply that to people's parcels. So I just want to clarify that.
And I remember I had one more thing that I wanted to say. And I hear there's the feedback we get about the reval itself and the methodology behind the reval. And I understand that is one issue that people are coming to us. And the other is affordability and taxation. And I'm going to disagree with a little bit with the whole room and find what I think is the perspective that I have by saying, I do think we're in a crisis. I do think we're in a crisis. What the cause of the crisis is might be different from what people in the room are saying, but I do think we're in a crisis. People, if you don't live here, you're not going to be able to get a house here. I mean, the affordability, what we're facing is everyone is getting squeezed from all sides. And it's not just the town. This pressure, this problem, these issues are culminating from everywhere. And so we're going to maybe be talking about a little bit tonight, like what can we do? But that was something that I wanted to say, that I do think we're in a crisis, but for me, the source of that and the cause of it is much deeper than one single thing. And that I see that when we see that, what you're saying about chasing those market values, that is a symptom of a much bigger problem. And I think we as a board would really want to steer the ship in a different direction. So with that, can end town board member tonight.
One last
Okay.
comment, the alternate on the Board of Assessment Review, that's governed by state law, right?
I believe, I'm not sure, but I think, okay, that you cannot have one.
Yeah.
I think you can, but it has to be in the local law. Maybe, what were you gonna
I
say?
thought you can use a Bounding Towns Board of Assessment Review.
Oh, okay. So we'll look into that, but we tend to have alternates for all the ones that we are allowed to by state law, so. But yeah, we should look at that. We'll look at it. I am not presenting my annual financial report. I don't have it in full. It's in a draft. I just wanted to share a few things, that there's a lot of discussion about fund balance. So we had planned last year to use $300,000 of fund balance. We'd also planned to take on $250,000 of debt. And that was revenue. We did not take on the debt, so that was a revenue loss for us. But one of the questions that came up with the school board was about, well, this is probably more true for the school, but doesn't a fund balance only occur when you've over budgeted? For the town, sometimes we have more revenue than we thought we were going to have. So that actually happened in 2025. We did have more revenue than we planned, and we made up for that $250,000 ban that, which I knew at the time that when I was watching the numbers, that we didn't need to take that debt on. But it also meant that we only spent $168,000 of fund balance where we had budgeted $300,000. So that makes me feel even better about what we budgeted this year because we did budget to use $250,000 of fund balance. Highway fund, was also has had a 0 fund balance for a couple of years. Last year, we built it up by a little under $100,000, and it looks like we built it up a little bit more. So I think that I hear what people are saying about tight budgeting, but it's also not great to have 0 in your bank account at the end of the year, because there's always unplanned expenditures, and sometimes those can bankrupt a town. So if you don't have enough fund balance, you are at risk of going bankrupt, and we really don't want to end up there. So those are some positives that I wanted to share. But overall, our fund balance level is going down because we appropriated and spent all of our ARPA funding, and we have been utilizing fund balance to balance our budget. So that means that we're not adding to our fund balance every year because we are using it in our actual revenue stream. The other project I've been working on, which, you know, if I weren't so incredibly busy, I think I would find it a little fun. Our capital asset, the way we should be doing them is based on actual cost. And what I have a record of is replacement cost. So I've been going through every single capital asset that was more than $2,500 and finding what the town paid for them. And so it is like very interesting, but it means that when I file the annual financial report, we will have an explanation for this for the state comptroller, but our capital assets are going to be really low compared to what they've been before. But that is because it's a methodology change that we're doing it the way the state comptroller has asked for in that report. So I also wanted to share that'll be a big
Question about ours, depreciated?
yes, yeah, and there's a schedule that's provided by the state that we use. And also how I'm filling in the blanks, because I can use current day costs and then depreciate the value and use that to say what the cost would have been. And that also touches on like as the chief fiscal officer of the town, I oversee all the town budgeting. I oversee the town taxpayer funding, and every month we have a public report that is posted publicly and that I give to the board. And then we must submit a financial report to the state annually that has to be certified by an outside accountant. So everything we do has multiple sets of eyes looking at it. And so there is oversight over our finances. And the annual financial report is one really big part of that. That's going to get filed by the 30th. So I will share that with the board and we can do a more formal presentation at the May meeting. I'm going to let the beeping that's been happening is our attorney, and I'm going to let her know that she can. Oh, there she is. So she's going to join us now. So discussion items, let's see, 8:35. Okay. For number A, we have Community Preservation Advisory Board Committee interviews. I wanted to ask the town board how you would like to do those. I think we talked about scheduling a special meeting for those. So I wanted to get a rough time frame from you so that I can try to schedule that, or we can schedule something, but that way we get it. I want to get something on the calendar in May. Well, I think we decided, let's talk about it.
I mean, I don't think that they have, it's not one of those quasi judicial bodies, I think that I don't see anything. Public interviews or.
And we did decide we wanted the full board to do the interviews.
I mean, I think that since it's the first time that this board is in place. We should have.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I'd say I like the idea of doing this public. I know they're not the same as the zoning board of appeals or the planning board or the board of assessment review, but they will be advising future town boards on expenditures of funds. I think there's, it's good to understand people's backgrounds and their familiarity with open space, agriculture, the town itself. I think that would be valuable to have that be a public process. I know it's not necessarily something we do for every board, but I think this is going to be kind of an important board in terms of shaping how the town develops.
I don't have the objection. It's like, I just don't feel.
We got 4 official applications for that committee. So we can put a plug for that committee. So what this committee is the committee that oversees the community preservation plan and makes recommendations to the town board about how to use funds from the Community Preservation Fund, which is funded by a real estate transfer tax that is on the upper portion of real estate transactions that are above the median. So we did get our first report of what the first month of sales is a little over $25,000 that will be going into that fund. And so it will be generating revenue by, so there's not anything in there that we would want to, we don't need to spend it right away, but I think since that is a tax, it's not the same as property tax, but it is a tax funded fund, and we're this advisory committee is the one that is going to be making those recommendations to the board on how we should spend that money in accordance with the plan. So that I think it's a very interesting role, and we do want, I think we do want a committee that is really representative of the town. And a lot of our neighboring towns did this a couple years before us, and we're seeing some of the things that they're doing with their funding. I know that when we did our plan document, we really focused a lot on agriculture. So I'm hopeful that we can find those with an agricultural background interested in the committee, but we haven't had anyone with that applying yet. So one thing I wanted to do is we did take an ad out, and we've advertised a request for applicants. We have a pool of people that have applied for other boards and commissions, and I wanted to do outreach to that pool and see if anyone is interested in applying, and we can use their resume and maybe they can update their letter of interest so that we can have, I'd like to have at least a full board going into it.
Are there any ways, I mean, I don't know, have we talked directly to the ag committee, and are there any ways to directly get in touch with farmers and make sure they're aware of those things?
Yeah, I have two ways to do that. Okay. Yeah, I was thinking that I would definitely do that. Yeah. Okay.
Farmer, bat signal.
Yeah, farmer bat signal. It's you flick your tractor lights. So with that, knowing that we only have 4 for that committee, for applicants, when would we wanna schedule that special meeting? We have 3 weeks in between this meeting and our next meeting.
Second week in May. Unless you want to do it April 30th.
No, I don't wanna do it April 30th.
Well, that's. You're saying a different day then, because that's our meeting is the 14th, right? You're saying that same week?
No, I mean. I don't have a calendar, but.
May 7th would be the Thursday before, I can't do that, but the week before starts on the 4th, the week of our meeting is the week of.
It would be the first, well, we could do it that week. The second week of May, we have a meeting that week, but we can schedule a special meeting that week.
I'm pretty flexible. So whatever.
I could do it either of those weeks, but I can't do it on the 7th.
Okay. So we'll look at May and I will see what I can schedule and then I'll do a supervisor calling a special meeting for that purpose. Okay. Anything else on that? I'm sorry, I got a little rambly there with that, but.
Nope.
Nope. Okay. I did, we have a lot of public participation, a lot of public discourse right now. I wanted to just open the conversation up to town affordability policy planning. This is something that I feel this is the time for us to really discuss what we've done, what we can do, what we can't do, what we'd like to do. I have done a lot of research on like what the best policy initiatives that we can do to really focus on affordability. We've done a lot of the things that are at our disposal. So like, I was really happy to hear that the school increased the income-based tax exemptions that are available to us. The town also did that. So we have the senior tax exemption, the persons living with disabilities on a limited income. We have the veterans exemption. So we have all of those. Those are basically the only income-based exemptions that the town has the ability to implement. STAR and Enhanced STAR are state exemption programs. We have special legislation before the state legislature that would allow us to do the same thing that we're doing with the community preservation plan, but with a housing real estate transfer tax. And, when I saw that first report came in, I definitely felt like I would love to see this go to housing. That the vote on that would be in the June session. So they are going to be convening next month. So if anything's happening in committee or in the session, the representatives from both our legislators will get in touch with me, but hopefully the edits we did are all set and it'll move through. But that vote would pass in June. Then I just want to talk to the board about if that passes and we're able to make moves on that, do we want to try and get that on the ballot in November?
I think absolutely. It doesn't have the same requirement of having like a defined plan for it, right?
Mm-mm.
So it's just mandatory referendum.
Yeah. Okay. We have a bare bones board tonight, but so the next thing that we've done is we did secure a grant to do a community housing plan. There was a delay in getting the agreement moving, but that is happening now. So I'll have more information on the timeline for that funding. They have put a very short timeline on that. So we have a year to do that project. So once that contract is executed, we'll really want to be in place to move forward with that.
A year post execution.
Yeah. So those two things, that community housing plan and the real estate transfer tax, I think are really huge projects that we are very like, we're at the forefront of being a municipality that's taking advantage of these tools. So I think that's one good thing. Anything that comes of any of this, though, is probably a couple years out. So I just wanted to open it up to the board and see if there's anything that you've thought of over the last few weeks that you would like to see us focus on to try to address our affordability issues in the ways that we can as the town.
I mean, one thing that has or concerned me is while being in town hall, I heard multiple people come in and say, I didn't know I was eligible for STAR. I don't know what STAR is. Which is, it can be a significant amount of money, which we also found out some people get as an exemption, some people actually get a check. Depending on when you register for it. So if you register for it now, it's an actual check that shows up in September based off your school budget. And so figuring out outreach, particularly for seniors on fixed incomes, because they are eligible for the enhanced STAR. I don't know, we just have to make more people aware of that.
Yeah, there's gonna be a bigger communications effort in that.
Yeah.
It would probably be helpful when we get our email list back.
Yeah.
And there are people who are like, I've been eligible for 10, 15 years and I didn't know it.
I have
I mean,
met. a
I
few
think that
people.
goes to all the exemptions because
Yes.
people weren't aware that other types of property tax exemptions existed. And I think that the town could be more proactive in publicizing those
Yeah.
and describing what the programs are and eligibility.
Yeah, one of the things I've met a lot of people that, when we're looking at their data and, I notice they don't have exemptions, you might be available for these. And then to know that the deadline is March 1st, there's
That out and
right, but then there's so much time between now and the deadline that I think it gets lost. Like I've talked to a few people that are like, yeah, I keep thinking that I'm gonna get that in and I keep not getting it in. So I think a really well-timed campaign, because now is the time that people really notice it, but the actual application time frame is closer to
I think
now.
perfect time would be right after they get their school tax bill.
But then also understanding like when the forms can be filed, because I think timing it with that is also.
Well, also
Okay.
the weekend session model of come down and we'll fill out STAR application. If you don't have it, we'll help you find it, fill it out, if you have questions and that's something.
So this is, I'm just gonna be adding these to our priority list. So any other thoughts?
I mean, the only thing, the housing problem is driven by a lot of things, but it's really expensive to build. And because it's expensive to build, people are building higher end homes and selling them to, for top dollar. I keep thinking about our economic enterprise overlay law, which I don't like in its current form necessarily, but I wonder if there's a way in which we could have something more like an overlay district that would enable higher density along 209 or in certain districts or in the overlay. If there's a way in which we can encourage developers to build something through incentives that would have a requirement for more affordable housing units or something. And I don't know if we can repurpose that law or if that needs to be a new law. Or if there's any examples in the county that have done that, but.
Okay. That reminds me, Sullivan County has a exemption that I don't think we have here. Where you get like the one that we just passed for the ADU, you get for your own improvements on your own home. Which I think, I would love to see something like that. Because it encourages renovation and use of existing structures, and then you get that 10-year, you get a full exemption on the improvement for 5 years and then it,
Mhm.
so that's something we could maybe like lobby for.
Is it only for the county or is it for the municipalities?
Well, in Sullivan County and the municipalities have it, but I haven't seen that anywhere around here, so it's really impactful if the school does it, so we have to see what we are able to do, and then we have to see if the school will pass it also. That reminded me of something else. The other thing, I mean, I think the community housing plan technical assistance grant that we're getting is going to address overlay district and also the thing I'm about to talk about, which is that it's very difficult to do things in our town. And I think there's some things that I think that's very good. I think we want to preserve our rural resources in our town, but then there's other things that I think don't have that kind of impact and impede our ability to reuse some of the vacant structures and to that sort of thing, or to like even do like a lot line deletion or a simple it should be simplified. The things that really affect like everyday people and their ability to do things in the town, I think those need to be made a lot easier in terms of process. But I don't know. We cannot tax second homes at a higher tax rate. I just wanted to say that. Did look into it. Under New York State constitutional law, we are not allowed to do that. New York City can do that because they're allowed to under the New York State Constitution, but we're not. So
That reminds me too, the planning board, I think, is interested if the board has specific priorities that they would want Dave to review to know if, like, what that prioritized list would look like in terms of specific zoning codes.
right, yep.
I know we've talked about conservation, subdivision, having gray areas, but not gray areas that could be clarified.
Well, I think, I really want to take a lot of what is coming up and in terms of affordability and really focus on results-driven solutions. So this is going to be something I want to talk about at every meeting. So, and we do have, like I said, these two really big projects that are really aimed at that we will be spending a lot of time on. And I think we're going to be hoping that we have a lot of community engagement on these projects because we want them to really fit the needs of the community. So I know it's getting late. For local law D of 2026, replacing chapter 132, the vehicle and traffic law, we closed the public hearing. I did not put it on to pass because we had not had a discussion at all about whether or not we wanted to see any changes to that draft. So, do you guys want to take the time between now and our next meeting to think about that? Any changes that I make, if we want to adopt it, they have to be in your hands 10 days before the meeting. If it's substantial, we'll have to open a new public hearing. So I'll send a deadline reminder around. So if you have anything, you have to get it to me before, like, you have to get it to me like 11 days before our next meeting.
Erin, it's 8 days.
Oh, 8 days if it's digital? Okay, I had 10 in my head, but all right.
It's 7, but it doesn't include Sundays, so it's always 8.
Oh, okay. I'm a procrastinator, so 10 days is probably a good thing for me, but okay, 8 days. So get it to me 10 days ahead. How about that? In these little packets that I have with the paperclip. We have that copy of that law, but we'll move on from that. The moratorium, so I wanted to talk about this a little bit. We got advisory comment back from the Ulster County Planning Board and the Town of Rochester Town Planning Board. And I wanted to review the Ulster County Planning Board's comment. I just got it at the end of the day yesterday, so I did upload it for you guys, but I brought the printout so that we could look at it together. So they're giving us a required modification that I'll just read this. The town should refrain from imposing a blanket moratorium on all battery energy storage systems. While it is appropriate to evaluate land use safety and emergency response considerations, a universal prohibition would unnecessarily restrict low impact systems that are already widely deployed and safely regulated under state and national standards. Instead, the town should adopt a tiered regulatory framework that distinguishes between system sizes and associated risk profiles consistent with the NYSERDA model law. The town's primary regulatory and review efforts should be directed towards tier 3 BESS installations, which warrant greater scrutiny due to fire safety considerations, site design and separation distances, emergency response planning and coordination, potential visual, noise, and land use impacts. Larger systems include commercial scale and utility scale systems with a threshold of 600 kilowatt hours and up, consistent with the adopted updated New York State Fire Code, which triggers specific requirements for those size facilities. Front of the meter installations, systems with larger battery capacities, and potential off-site impacts.
Yeah, I think this is something you all realized was an unintended consequence. We didn't want to prevent home
Yeah.
installations for small scale, so.
Yep.
I agree with them.
Okay. I did actually ask for clarification and I haven't heard back. I believe what they're saying is the required mod is move forward with the moratorium, but model your regulatory efforts on what the NYSERDA model law calls tier 3.
Yeah.
Okay. The other way I was like, are they telling us not to pass the moratorium and just pass regulatory requirements? But I don't.
I read it is that they want us to, something you've been talking about,
Yeah.
to add something to the moratorium so that the moratorium's not going to affect the homeowners.
Right.
So I think they're asking for you to add some language to make this so it's only the large scale.
Yeah,
Moratorium's only for these large scale projects. And then these are things to look at when you're actually drafting a law.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, because a home system is going to be 20.
So Mary Lou, can I ask if we make this required modification, do we need to do a public hearing again, or
Well,
is
actually, because we didn't have the Ulster County Planning Board recommendation back, I think you kept the public hearing open because we needed to have that before we could make a decision.
We kept it open for written comments.
yeah, until the 13th?
Right.
Okay, well, you should reopen it then,
Okay.
because this will be a major change to the moratorium.
Okay. So
So,
do you want, should we reopen it and I'll issue the new draft that will be considered?
right before if I would reopen and continue the public hearing at your May meeting if that works for you.
Okay.
For the board.
But I can introduce a new
and
draft.
Right,
after.
and have that draft ready beforehand, put it on the website. And if you have that new draft to the board 8 days in advance, you could pass it that night.
Okay, so we'll do that with the resolutions. Okay. Okay. So then the Town of Rochester Planning Board agree, they had a similar, they wanted to make sure home devices were not part of the moratorium. They are making suggestions, I think, for what after that, the safety standards, location and code, neighboring towns, that has more to do with a zoning statute that would regulate these systems. But I think the main feedback they're giving is to make sure that home systems are not part of the moratorium.
That's what I read.
Okay, great. So we will take care of that. Any other changes that you guys would like to see in that? Okay. So, not ready for you guys. And anything new with the lease agreement with the food pantry?
No, lots more.
Oh, right, so we want to wait until they're back and they will get their feedback. Okay, perfect. We were going to discuss the MOU with the Clothes for Free. I think we maybe had a little misunderstanding of who was the point person on that.
I have a draft I could send out to everyone. Like,
Huh?
I have a basic draft. I
You have
can
a
send.
basic draft? Okay, okay. So I did meet with them about the timing of when they want to have a new shed delivered. I talked to all of our supervisors and department heads about the location and order of operations. So we're moving forward like internally on that. And I think that the timing is fine. So you know, we might have the pod there for more than the 2 months that we discussed, but that wasn't a binding. But we're moving forward.
Are you coordinating with Tina?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, I had a meeting with them last week. And they did have some input. They had listened to the discussion that we had and wanted to make it clear that they really wanted to invite board members to come and see how they operate it, but they one of the things they brought up that they asked that I share with the board is that a benefit of the Clothes for Free that is unseen is that they fill the St. Pauli's textile bin every single month that they the day after. So they're rotating their inventory and sorting it out, and that the town benefits from that additional little bump that we get. So but they do have a whole system for maintaining their inventory and making sure that they are cycling through, and encourage the town board to come visit at their next.
How much do we get in revenue from the donation boxes out there?
$100 a month.
It's probably like $85 a month. Sometimes might be a little over.
Yeah. I
The
have.
point is they're not gonna outgrow the shed space here. They're keeping it.
Yes, yep, yeah, and they feel very confident about that. So, oh, I should have taken that off the discussion items. So we're gonna skip over the court security camera policy. Body camera policy I put on because I thought we were gonna get feedback in time from our labor attorney on that, but that is still forthcoming. And then I wanted to review the town board calendar. We talked a little bit about the timing of the legislative session and our special home rule authority request to have the real estate transfer tax for a community housing fund. So we need to be prepared for when that passes to introduce a local law, those local laws, so that we have enough time to engage with the community. We did do a lot of community engagement last year, but a lot has happened in between. So we'll want to make sure that there's time for that. Even it's going to be squished regardless, because that's usually mid-June is when they vote on stuff,
Can you remind me when to get it on the ballot? What's realistic?
like August 5th.
4th, 5th, somewhere,
Yeah.
it's like that first week in August, that has to be too.
And we can still do outreach after that.
Yeah.
For the referendum, but.
Yes, yeah. But we did, you know, this is something that the community like asked us for when we were doing the community preservation plan. They said, you need to do this for housing. So that was something we got a lot of feedback from the directly from the community. So there's that, and then basically, right around that time is when budget season starts. So June and July is internal. And then, it really starts to pick up September and October. We have some events coming up, which don't really take much town board time at all. I think the biggest thing is, the biggest known is this technical assistance grant. And as soon as that gets executed, there's gonna have to be a lot of action taken on that. So that's probably gonna overlay pretty heavily with budget season. So we'll have to figure out how to, you know, have others really step in for that. And the other thing I was gonna bring up is, we've got the bid for the Boyce Mill Bridge construction is gonna be very tight because I haven't gotten it yet. And they want the letting to happen in June. So hopefully I'll have it at our next meeting. It is possible that I will need to call a special meeting when I get that to have you guys look at it and approve it so that we can publish it. And we have a minimum of 3 weeks for that. And that is a big contract. Also, once that happens, I will be that's when I will start to take out the larger ban to help with the cash flow for that project. So that is reimbursable, but we have to front the funding for that. So I think whichever is less, using fund balance from our high interest account or the ban, I think that's how we have to look at the financing for that. So it kind of, yeah, it kind of depends on the interest rates, but I think whatever we net better, that's what we should go with. So then for May, again, we have 3 weeks, so that feels like a long time, but we might be meeting in between with a special meeting. We will be potentially adopting our vehicle and traffic law, potentially adopting the moratorium. We will also probably be moving forward on the grant project. If with that, I'll have to have that on the agenda, the agreement for the acceptance of the award and all that. Was there anything else? Oh, the MOUs. And potentially appointments at that meeting as well. So that's.
I have a question.
Yep.
Okay, speaking of moratoriums, Charlotte had asked about the moratorium. I don't know what you call it, High Tech Farms, because I don't have it in front of me. It just came.
The data centers?
Yes, the data centers. Right now, there is a bill that they're looking at in Albany to do a state moratorium.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you still want me to prepare this, or if you want to wait and see what the state does?
Well, what's the likelihood the state will have done something this year?
Hey, you never know, but it,
Yeah.
it would be by June. I mean, we're
Yeah.
talking, it'd be in front of
I mean,
you
I think
folks.
if they're gonna have progress on that or action on that in June, I think we can.
Right, and we can determine in July if they,
60 days, but if it's gonna last until next year, I would.
right. Should we wait until the end of session and see whether they've done anything?
Yeah, and I've got these open correspondences I can also ask and see. I can get the temperature of our representatives.
Okay,
Oh, and that reminds me, just on I forgot to tell you guys, on the town affordability policy planning, I invited them to do town halls because I think it's really important too that we engage with our state representatives on these issues. So, we'll see if they take me up on those requests. It's an election year, so maybe they will. But I think it would be really good to not have a political event, have a town hall where we are the public comes and engages with our representatives. We are really out there in the district, so I feel like having them come here would be really valuable. And so we're gonna wait on that. Okay. We'll probably have a pretty full agenda at our next meeting. So acceptance of the minutes, we tabled this at our last meeting. So I will make a motion that the Town of Rochester Town Board accepts the minutes for our Thursday, March 12th, 2026 meeting and our Thursday, March 26th, 2026 meeting as prepared by our town clerk, and thank our clerk for her work, including all of the public comments for the record.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Oh, shoot, sorry, I forgot to write these numbers down. I'm gonna do another slow motion for the abstract. So I'm gonna make a motion that the Town of Rochester Town Board accepts abstract 4B of 2026 and approves the payments in the following amounts. $68,956.77 for general fund. Capital fund, $9,463.34. Ambulance fund, $54,917.50. Street lighting fund, $123.96. Escrow is $11,769.10. And highway is $66,457.17. Do I have a second? Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstain, motion carries. So, per our policy, the Housing Advisory Committee received an applicant that their application to the Housing Advisory Committee has been shared with the board. They did the interview and are recommending that individual be appointed. And my notes. My computer is spinning, so I'm going to pull that up from my phone real quick.
Do you know how many candidates they interviewed?
They just have the one. They have so we increased the membership to 10. they currently have 7 members. They know one is leaving, so they wanted to get, and this,
So there's still vacancies.
yeah, so we have, 2 more and then possibly a third after, but, so I would like to make a motion that the Town of Rochester Town Board appoints Brandon Hicks to the Housing Advisory Committee upon the recommendation of the Housing Advisory Committee Appointment Committee, in a term, to a 2-year term that expires December 31st, 2027.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstain, motion carries. So the I'm gonna make a motion that the Town of Rochester Town Board continues the public hearing for local law E of 2026.
Reopens and continues.
Okay, the Town of Rochester Town Board reopens and continues the public hearing for local law E of 2026. Local law is enacting a moratorium of battery energy storage systems for our regular business meeting Thursday, May 14th, 2026 at 6:30 p.m. at the Harold Lipton Community Center. And do we notice this?
Yes.
And request the clerk circulate notice.
Do I have to also send it out to agencies again with changes?
No, because the changes that are being made are at the recommendation of the county and
Okay.
town
Okay.
Second.
planning boards.
Okay.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. And now we've got an executive session.
I move that the Town of Rochester Town Board enters into executive session at 9:20 for the purposes of discussing matters that lead to the appointment of particular persons and matters regarding possible litigation.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you.
Was these done from the Board of Education?
Yes,
correct?
you may take these if anyone wants a hard copy of the PowerPoint.